Hey everybody, tonight we're diving into the often overlooked world of global labor exploitation. It's a topic that's about as fun as a root canal, but far more important to ignore. We like to think things are getting better, that the days of colonial exploitation are long gone. But the truth, not so much. For centuries, Africa served as the world's punching bag, plundered for its resources and people. European powers carved up the continent like a birthday cake, leaving behind a legacy of poverty and instability. But as we patted ourselves on the back, convinced that we'd moved on, a new player emerged on the scene: China. China's meteoric rise as an economic powerhouse came at a cost often paid for by its own people, toiling away in factories, churning out products for the West. And now, in a twist of irony so thick you could cut it with a butter knife, China is replicating the West's playbook, this time in Africa. So buckle up, folks, because tonight we're going deep into the underbelly of global trade, where the pursuit of profit often trumps basic human decency. Let's rewind the clock a bit, shall we? Back when Europe treated Africa like its own personal buffet. We're talking centuries of plunder, exploitation on an industrial scale. They weren't there for sightseeing, folks. They wanted gold, diamonds, rubber, you name it, and they weren't afraid to use force to get it. Millions of Africans were enslaved, shipped off across the Atlantic in conditions that would make a sardine can look spacious. Those who remained were often forced into labor, working on plantations and in mines under brutal conditions. The whole system was rigged to benefit Europe, leaving Africa drained and depleted. But here's the thing about exploitation: it's not just about stealing resources, it's about creating systems that keep people trapped in poverty. It's about denying them education, healthcare, and basic human rights. And it's about leaving them vulnerable to, well, more exploitation. Fast forward to the late 20th century, and a new kid arrives on the block: China. With its vast workforce and low wages, China quickly became the go-to destination for cheap manufacturing. Remember those Made in China stickers? They were everywhere. Western companies, always on the hunt for a bigger profit margin, flocked to China like moths to a flame. And who can blame them? Cheaper labor means bigger profits, right? But those low prices came at a cost borne by Chinese workers. Long hours, low wages, dangerous working conditions. These were the hallmarks of China's manufacturing boom. It was the same old story, just with a different cast of characters. The West had found a new source of cheap labor, and they were going to squeeze it for all it was worth. Now here's where things get really interesting. As China's economy grew, so did its appetite for resources. And guess where it turned its attention? You guessed it, Africa. Suddenly, Chinese companies were everywhere in Africa, building roads, bridges, and infrastructure. They were investing in mining and agriculture, securing access to the continent's vast resources. Sound familiar? It should. China claims its engagement with Africa is different, that it's a win-win situation, but critics argue that it's just a new form of colonialism, with China calling the shots this time. They point to land grabs, unfair trade deals, and a lack of transparency. Section 5, From Runway to Ruin, Luxury's Dirty Secret. Now let's talk about something a little closer to home. Luxury brands. You know, those companies that sell handbags that cost more than a small car. Turns out some of them have a dirty little secret. Remember those sweatshops in China we talked about? Yeah, some of them are still churning out products for some of the biggest names in fashion. We're talking about forced labor, child labor, and conditions that would make your stomach turn. These brands, of course, deny any wrongdoing. They claim they have strict ethical sourcing policies and that they're committed to fair labor practices, but the evidence suggests otherwise. It seems that when it comes to making a profit, ethics often take a back seat. Section 6. Trade wars, a battleground of exploitation. You know what really shines a light on this whole mess? Trade wars. Remember when those were all the rage? Countries slapping tariffs on each other's goods, trying to protect their own industries. On the surface, it all sounds very patriotic, right? But scratch beneath the surface and you'll find something else entirely. Trade wars are often fought on the backs of the most vulnerable workers. When tariffs are imposed, companies have to find ways to cut costs. And you know what's an easy way to cut costs? Squeezing your suppliers, who in turn squeeze their workers. It's a vicious cycle of exploitation, and it's only getting worse. Section 7, the illusion of ethical consumption. So what can we do about all this? Well, some people say the answer is ethical consumption. Buy less, buy local, support companies that treat their workers fairly. And while that's all well and good, it's not that simple. See, the system is designed to make ethical consumption difficult. Companies don't exactly go out of their way to tell you where their products come from or how they're made. And even if they did, could you be sure they were telling the truth? The truth is, we're all complicit in this system. Every time we buy a cheap t-shirt or a new smartphone, there's a good chance someone somewhere is being exploited, and that's a tough pill to swallow. Section 8, can the cycle be broken? So can this cycle of exploitation ever be broken? It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. Some people say we need stricter regulations, stronger labor laws, and more transparency in global supply chains. Others argue that we need to address the root causes of poverty and inequality, empowering workers and giving them a seat at the table. And still others believe that the only real solution is a fundamental shift in our values, away from mindless consumerism and towards a more sustainable and equitable way of life. The truth is, it's probably going to take a combination of all of the above. It's going to require a concerted effort from governments, corporations, and individuals alike. It's not going to be easy, but it's a fight worth having. Section 9, a call to action disrupting the system. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a deeply entrenched system and it's not going to change overnight. But that doesn't mean we should just throw up our hands and give up. We need to stay informed, we need to hold corporations accountable, and we need to demand better from our leaders. We need to support organizations that are fighting for workers' rights, and we need to amplify the voices of those who are being silenced. This isn't about charity, folks. It's about justice. It's about recognizing that every human being deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. It's about creating a world where exploitation is not just wrong, it's unthinkable. So let's get to work. Like, comment, subscribe.